A good Erev Shabbos, there's a classic joke story about humility. The story goes that on Yom Kippur, it's time for bowing down and prostrating ourselves in front of the ark. So the Chazan is singing out and bowing down on the floor, "Oh, forgive me, O God, for I am nothing." And the rabbi also bows down, "Forgive me, O Lord, for I am nothing." Such an inspiring scene that little Yankel the tailor sitting in the back row of the shul is so moved that he walks up the aisle in the middle of the shul, and he comes to the front of the shul. He also bows down on the floor in front of the Aron, crying out with his whole heart, "Oh, forgive me, O God, for I am nothing." So the rabbi sees this out of the corner of his eye, and he whispers to the Chazan, "Look who thinks he's nothing." What makes a joke funny is the truth that's in it, usually. So this one tells us a lot about religious posturing, not just the standing and bowing down kind, but also how we present ourselves and how we want to be seen in contrast to who we really are. It also raises the question of, is nothing really something? Or in other words, do you have to be something in order to be a nothing? That question is also raised by the parsha that we're grappling with this week. We're reading a double parsha, Behar and Bechukosai. These are the last two parshas in Chumash Vayikra, in the book of Leviticus. So if we were all in shul together, we'd stand up at the end and say, "Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek," after the seventh aliyah. May it give us strength, even if we're not reading in shul. It's still Shabbos Chazak, and we take strength from it, even if we can't come to shul and celebrate that milestone in our community Torah reading the way we'd like to. We could all use some strength about now. It's been 2 months since we've been on lockdown, and we're looking at yet another Yom Tov coming up quickly on the horizon. In about 2 weeks' time, Shavuos is coming, and there's no indication that we'll be back together in shul for that Yom Tov. And that's a big deal, because first of all, it's good to be together. Second of all, because it looks like we're going to have to say Yizkor by ourselves at home again, now for the second time. And also because on Shavuos we usually have a nice cheesecake kiddush, something I look forward to very much, and a nice lunch on the first day of Yom Tov together. And even more, we'll be missing our Torah Tours friends, our volunteers from Yeshiva University, and all that they bring. At least we can say we're definitely fulfilling the idea of rest on Yom Tov, because we've been doing an awful lot of resting these past few weeks. Some people are getting a little bit restless, to say the least. Even with walks around the block for fresh air, it's a little confining. And in between the snow and the rain, a walk around the living room and to the kitchen is sometimes the big expedition of the day. So maybe, just maybe, some of the ideas in this parsha have some insight and some perspective to comfort us and to give us encouragement and strength. The parsha starts with the idea of the Shemitah year. What's the Shemitah year? The sabbatical. The land rests once every 7 years. There's no planting. There's no harvesting. The land lies fallow. It's a good chance to use that word. Only comes up in this context. Up until this year, we've thought of Shemitah as something that affects us sort of tangentially, remotely. The mitzvah of Shemitah, letting the land rest, not farming it, applies in Israel only, not in Canada or Ukraine or Lithuania or Tunisia or any other places we lived over the centuries. In Israel, farmers actually have a mitzvah to stop planting and harvesting for the entire year. We're not Israelis and we're not farmers, so ma inyan Shemitah. What's that got to do with us? The answer is we like to support Israel by buying Israeli produce and fruits and wines and all that good stuff. So we have to make sure that produce that's grown in the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year, was produced in such a way as to honor the Shemitah. Then we get into a whole thing about which wines are acceptable a year or two after the Shemitah year. It's one of my favorite things to see. Last time around, 5.5, 6 years, whatever it was, when the LCBO puts on their website, ask your rabbi if this wine is appropriate for your use, because it was produced with Otzer Bezdin or whatever method. I love this. The LCBO, first of all, thinks that people listen to their rabbis, but we all know that everybody really listens to the LCBO. I get a kick out of that. When I have time, I'm thinking of writing the LCBO with a suggestion for their website. Here are the top 10 things you should tell your customers to ask their rabbi about. One day we'll get to it. Anyway, Shemitah, or sabbatical, it makes a lot of sense if you think about it for just 2 seconds. When you let the land lie fallow and you don't work it for a year, the nutrients, the microorganisms in the soil replenish and rise to the surface, and result in a better and more bounteous crop the following year. Please don't take my word for it. Not like I have any experience with it. Look up gardeningknowhow.com and search the article on fallowing. This is not a Jewish site. They have no vested interest in me being right or wrong. They're just telling you the science of farming, and their finding is that letting the land rest for a year has positive results for the next years of crops. That's obvious for us too, right? When we rest on our weekly sabbatical called Sabbath or Shabbos, when we turn off the email and the Google and the WhatsApp and we let our eyes adjust to something besides a screen, when we go for a walk instead of go for a drive, take 2 hours to daven and actually say all the words instead of rushing through it in a half an hour rather to get downtown to work, our minds are clearer. We're better rested, we're better fed, we're in a better frame of mind to get to whatever it is we have to do the following week. We say that in the Messianic era, which we're all looking forward to, it's called Yom Shekulo Shabbat. Yom Shekulo Shabbos is the Talmud's expression in Tamid. The day that's entirely Shabbat. All rest, all the time. No work, no obligations. Just rest and relaxation all the time. Isn't that sort of what we have now? Most everyone's not working. There's rest all the time. No shopping or very little. Just rest, rest, rest. How much rest can a person take already? So let's look at the idea of resting from a fresher perspective. Maybe it's not just doing nothing. Maybe it is something in and of itself. Maybe it's a positive thing that has real benefits and purpose. Letting the land rest is not just a negative thing. Thou shalt not plant or harvest in the seventh year. It's also a positive mitzvah. Thou shalt let the land rest. Let it lie fallow on the seventh year. It's really just like Shabbos at its essence. You have to not do this, not do that on Shabbos. It's true. No internet, no Zooming. I got such a headache the other week from all the Zooming. If I had to Zoom all 7 days, I don't know what I'd do. So there's a lot of thou shalt not, but the thou shalt is a positive side also. It's a positive act to rest on Shabbos. Let it just relax. Let everything settle in. Take a deep breath. Reflect. Be free to think. Not have to run off to do something right away. Resting ourselves on Shabbos, resting the land on Shabbos, is not only a negative, it's actually a positive. And I'm not making this up. It's actually the Sifra on our Parsha. When the Torah itself says, and on the seventh year, there should be a complete rest for the land, a Shabbat for Hashem. Don't plant your field and don't prune your vineyard. The way it says it, Uvashana Hashviis, Shabbos Shabbason Yeh La'aretz, Sadcha Loi Sizra, V'charmecha Loi Sizmor. Sifra comments that it's for the sake of remembering God's 6 days of creation and then resting on the seventh day, which happens to be, you'll remember, the same motivation as our weekly cycle of 6 days of work and then Shabbos. And each one actually complements the other. Shabbos takes the things we do every day, like eating and talking and saying l'chaim, and it elevates them, it makes them into extra holy acts. They're now imbued with the holiness of Shabbat. And Shemitah takes holiness and godliness and brings it all the way down to the earth beneath our feet. It's amazing. But here we are in what seems like an endless cycle of resting, an ongoing Shemitah. Like every day we're resting, staying at home, sheltering in place. How do we make that nothing into something? Each time we meet online, we say, oh, what's new? Oh, nothing. Nothing's new. What are you up to? Oh, nothing. How do we engage in the task, the transformation of making nothing into something? Let me suggest something that's come up in a few of our classes over the years, but maybe we have not yet discussed it in depth like we might have. It's a bit of a spiritual practice, but don't get nervous if you think you're not a spiritual person. It's also a mitzvah. It's also a best practice, so whatever excuse you need to try it, there you have it. It's called the bedtime Shema, Kriya Shema Lamita, literally reading the Shema as you go to bed. If you have our Siddur, if you have the Art Scroll Siddur, it's on page 288. There's a whole 4-page thing to say there with Tehillim and Hamalach, Adon Olam is there. If you still need a Siddur, let me know, and I can help you with that, by the way. And if you don't have a Siddur, or if 4 pages, if you do have a Siddur and 4 pages sounds like too much, that's okay too. Here's an easy way to start. Just say the beginning and the middle and the end. The beginning is like this. Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or antagonized or sinned against me whether accidentally or purposely. You can replay that part if you need to. It's the beauty of online drushes. Not only can you push, pause, or stop whenever you want, every Jew's dream, but you can also replay. You can go back 10 seconds back and hear that part over again. I'll even give it to you for free. I'll save you the trouble. Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or antagonized or sinned against me, whether accidentally or purposefully. Just say that at the end of every day. Let it all go. There's more in the paragraph, but start with that. Then you say the bracha, blessed are you, God, who illuminates the whole world with his glory. Very simple. Bracha, Baruch Ata Hashem, hameir la'olam kulo bechvodo. Then you say Shema Yisrael and V'ahavta. You could say the whole Shema if you want, but Shema and V'ahavta, you should love God, your God. That's what's printed in the Siddur. And then the last line of the whole thing, Hashem li velo ira. God is with me, I have no fear. You can say the whole Adan Olam if you want, but start small if you're starting out, and then work up from there. Now here's the spiritual part. Before you say those things, which are probably going to take you somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 seconds to say, take another 45 seconds and think over the day, from beginning until when you just got in bed. Think of what went well, think of what you accomplished today, and think of what you'd like to change or do to make tomorrow even a better day. Think of one thing you do differently or accomplish tomorrow that you didn't manage to do today to make it better, and then visualize yourself doing it. Now make a mental note to change that one thing tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to take care of it, and here's how I'm going to do it. Imagine yourself doing it, and then you say Shema, and then you go to sleep. Then the next morning, do the thing you said you'd do. One thing a day, one day at a time, and then when you look back the next night on the things that you did that day, say, hey, I accomplished that thing I was hoping to do. Crossed it off my to-do list. That is how we make progress in this life. That is how we turn nothing into something new each day. And that is how we get through this COVID era. Not just having survived, having made it through, but actually we'll come out the other end after the whole thing is finished, and we're hopefully happy and healthy, and all together we'll come out as better people. That's what life is about in general, and Shabbat Chazak, this Shabbos of strength, is all about. Shabbat Shalom.